Scandal. The prosecutor's office is trying to close the investigation into Begoña Gómez. Let's get started. Hello everyone and welcome to a new edition of Medidas Cautelares. Today we're going to talk about a new scandal, and there have already been many involving the prosecutor's office. This time, what do they want? To close the investigation into the wife of the Prime Minister, Begoña Gómez. You already know that the investigation is at a very advanced stage, practically finished, because Judge Penado has already requested the indictment of the wife of the Prime Minister, Pedro Sánchez, for up to 4 crimes. And now, pay attention. The prosecutor's office, listen to what I'm going to tell you. I think that the prosecutor's office with the Attorney General, Teresa Peramato, is going to be even worse than with Álvaro García Ortiz. Listen to what I'm telling you. Well, they have requested the immediate dismissal of the case to save Begoña Gómez. Let's share the information on screen as we always do. But first, remember to subscribe to the Medidas Cautelares channel. We're almost there. We decided there are .000, by the way. Many of you tell me, hey, why haven't your videos been showing up on YouTube when we log in? Well, remember to hit the bell so that every time we upload a video, you'll get a notification and know when there's a new Medidas Cautelares video. And we're now sharing on screen the document provided to us by the press office of the Prosecutor's Office of the Community of Madrid, specifically regarding that request to close the investigation into Begoña Gómez. Let's go ahead and read it. The Provincial Prosecutor's Office of Madrid on April 21, 2026 filed an appeal with the Provincial Court of Madrid. In Proceeding 11462024, which is the case of Begoña Gómez against the order of April 11, 2026 issued by the investigating judge, in which, on one hand, the request for dismissal, that is, for the case to be closed, and the requested proceedings are denied, and on the other hand, it notes the continuation of the case through the procedures before the jury court, in accordance with Article 26 of Organic Law 5/1995 of May 22 of the jury court. With regard to the investigated individuals, María Begoña Gómez Fernández, that is Begoña Gómez, and María Cristina Álvarez Rodríguez, that is the advisor to Begoña Gómez, at La Moncloa, for the crimes of influence peddling and business corruption, and against the businessman Juan Carlos Barrabés for the crimes of influence peddling. Of procedure, acordando, dice, simultáneamente, the court organic article of those under investigation, Begoña Gómez Fernández, that is Begoña Gómez Fernández, that is advisor to Begoña Gómez Moncloa, that is what the prosecutor's office is saying. The other day, Judge Penado, in his order from last April 11, already ordered the indictment of Begoña Gómez, her advisor Cristina Álvarez, and the businessman Juan Carlos Barrabés for those crimes we just mentioned. And furthermore, he denied another request for investigative steps that had been made by the prosecutor's office. I also believe Begoña Gómez's defense wanted the investigation kept open so new proceedings could continue. It's fine, they had already been indicted, it was time to charge the accused, and there was no need to keep investigating. The prosecutor requests the court, and I quote, to grant this appeal, issuing a ruling that decides for all the crimes and all the investigated parties involved the full dismissal of the proceedings in accordance with Article 637.2 of the Code of Criminal Procedure. Since the facts do not constitute a criminal offense, that is what the prosecutor's office says. And subsidiarily, the provisional dismissal in accordance with Article 641.1 of the Code of Criminal Procedure, since the commission of the crime that led to the initiation of the case has not been duly justified. That is what the prosecutor's office is requesting, is the full dismissal, which means the definitive closure of the case, and if the Provincial Court of Madrid does not grant it. Thus the provisional closure, which is the closure that is usually used, the provisional closure of the case, since it says the commission of the crime that led to this proceeding has not been duly justified. In another document addressed says the Madrid prosecutor's office today to the investigating judge that is to the head of the investigating court number 41 of Madrid, Juan Carlos Peinado, for the provincial court, which is the competent authority since this is a jury trial. The prosecutor's office also requests that the procedure be considered completed and again requests the full dismissal of the proceedings in accordance with Article 229.2. It says, in the event that the court considers it appropriate to proceed to trial, the case should be referred to the prosecutor again so that he may submit a provisional filing seeking acquittal. That is just to make it clear. The prosecutor's office requests, first of all, to close the investigation of the Begoña Gómez case, and secondly, to close the investigation of the Begoña Gómez case. If it hasn't been closed yet, then a third time to close the Begoña Gómez investigation. And if still not investigated, then for a fourth time, close the investigation into the Begoña Gómez case. Is it the prosecutor's office or Begoña Gómez's legal team? It's the same thing because we know how institutions are being manipulated. On the part of the president of the government, Pedro Sánchez, since he came to power in 2018, it feels like it's been 8 years already, and we already know that the prosecutor's office is precisely there to defend Begoña Gómez, Pedro Sánchez's wife. And this, which we've already come to accept as normal, shouldn't be this way. This is a real scandal. And the prosecutor's office should be the guarantor of the law and not dedicate itself to defending the wife of the president of the government. What happened is that this investigation began, and they've tried again and again for a year and a half, almost 2 years now, to close this investigation by any means necessary. This is the information I had to share with you about the prosecutor's office, about Begoña Gómez, but we also need to review what happened today at the Supreme Court, where I spent the day as usual. What caught my attention the most? Well, today, for example, Mariano Moreno testified, who was the manager of the Socialist Party, although he is no longer the manager. This man already testified before Supreme Court Magistrate Leopoldo Puente during the investigation and instruction period. And in the end, what he revealed in his statement is that there was a real mess in the expense control at the Socialist Party, with the envelopes that were given to Koldo, to Abalos, to Koldo's wife. I mean, a real joke and a complete mockery, where receipts weren't checked, and Koldo, he would ask for 1,000 euros in supposed meal receipts, and they would give it to him anyway. Well, today Mariano Moreno, who was actually very smug and even cracking jokes, you could tell he was comfortable, he enjoyed himself. And what the former manager of the Socialist Party basically said is that at no time did the PSOE pay expenses with what they call chistoras, meaning 500 euro bills, neither for Koldo nor for Abalos. And this man also says that the Socialist Party, through its bank account, well, the Socialist Party asked the bank for cash to pay some people's expenses, and the bank never handed over banknotes. Not even 100 euro notes, the so-called lechugas, nor 200 euro notes, the so-called sols, nor 500 euro notes, the so-called chistoras. And this man has explained, well, how was that request made? The bank would send a security company that is one of those armored trucks, an armored van, I think it was from the company Loomis as well, if I remember correctly, that they would send it to Ferraz, and then, well, Ferraz would take the money and hand it out in envelopes to Koldo, to Abalos, to Koldo's wife, to Koldo's brother, to whoever it was. And also, it was very interesting how this man, after denying the use of chistoras, said that 99.4% of the expenses were paid by bank transfer and only 0.6% in cash. I mean, look at that. What a coincidence. Specifically the part about Abalos and Koldo, which is under investigation in the Koldo case, and the part that's also being investigated in the secret section about the alleged illegal financing of the Socialist Party. Just that part was done in cash in hand, everything else was by bank transfer. You can't tell me that's not a coincidence. You can't tell me that's not a coincidence. That hasn't been the only statement he's made today. There was also one which I found especially outrageous from the Chief of Staff of Maria Jesus Montero at the Ministry of Finance, named Carlos Moreno. Also Moreno, but this is Carlos, not Mariano. Well, it was a real joke. Because it must be said that this man had a more or less trusting relationship with the businessman Victor Aldama. And that Aldama asked him if he could please look into postponing a debt for one of the companies he was connected to. He sent it to the tax agency. At the same time, Montero's own chief of staff sent Aldama a house for him to give advice on to see if he would buy it, and so on and so on. And Aldama even said that this man received about 25,000 euros for the work he did, right? For trying to postpone that company's debt. Well, today this man practically denied everything or didn't remember anything that made him look bad or affected him. I mean, well, you had a meeting with Aldama. Well, calling it a meeting is saying too much. We really only saw each other for 10 minutes. But anyway, you asked him for that. Yes, but it was by message, not by call. I mean, he denied everything, didn't remember anything, and couldn't confirm anything. When they tried to press him, especially Aldama's lawyer, Jose Antonio Choclan, well, he didn't remember anything. This man didn't remember anything, couldn't confirm anything, didn't recall. A real joke. And I think that in the Supreme Court, they've realized that obviously this man was lying through his teeth. I mean, every time he spoke, he lied, right? This has been one of the statements, and then I'd also like to go over two more. The former Secretary of State in the Ministry of Transport, Pedro Saura, who spoke about how he even called Victor de Aldama to discuss the issue of the Air Europa bailout. And, well, he has defended that the Air Europa bailout was all legal, and also that it was a strategic company because the European Commission had said that all airlines were considered strategic companies. Therefore, the Air Europa bailout was completely justified. Then he admitted that he also had meetings with Hidalgo, with Aldama, and so on. So the whole corruption scheme was brought to the plenary, right? I mean, and this man, Mr. Pedro Saura, has been dodging as best as he could, right? He would say one thing, then remember, oh yes, maybe Aldama was there, yes, now that you mention it. Well, anyway, the bailout of Air Europa is once again in the spotlight and once again surrounded by controversy, right? And then, to top it all off, I don't want to forget our great friend, the President of the Court of Auditors, Enriqueta Chicano, because she was asked about the Court of Auditors' oversight of the mass contracts. So Mrs. Chicano, well, she was very proud, very calm and all that, right? Well, she basically said that all the contracts were great, that they complied with the law, and that's when they started questioning her about the details of the reports made by the Court of Auditors. So, at that point, she admitted that she hadn't done any, that the Court of Auditors is a collegiate body, that there are 13 people, and that the presidency she holds doesn't intervene in any report. In short, her statement was worth little or nothing, right? Because obviously if you say that everything is great and then you haven't participated in any kind of report or anything, well, you probably can't say it with that much certainty, right? Because if you haven't participated and haven't overseen anything and then you go and act all high and mighty saying that everything is perfect, well, in short, I think Enriqueta Chicano's statement wasn't worth much. And that's basically what came out of this session of the Coldo case trial at the Supreme Court. Tomorrow we'll keep reporting on what happens because civil guard agents from the criminalistic service will start testifying, so tomorrow could be an interesting day. That's it for this edition of Precautionary Measures with Miguel Ángel Pérez. I hope you liked the video. If you did, you know you can leave your comments, your opinions, ask me your questions, and you know you can become members at the chosen tier for less than €3 a month or at the supreme tier for less than €7 a month. Thank you very much for your attention. If you haven't done it yet, remember to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you get notified every time a new video comes out. You get a notification, and that way you know there's a new video on precautionary measures with Miguel Ángel Pérez in case it doesn't show up on your YouTube homepage when you open YouTube. A lot of you have told me about this. The key is ensuring everyone gets this information since information is power. See you soon.